As many people know, a lot of people suffered immensely in a real devastating way when it came to Hurricane Ian, especially if you was in Florida. But you also had some people that was taking advantage of that situation to go and do some five-finger discounted shopping. And you're looking at one right here in this picture, and her name is Crystal Nelson. Now, this is going to be very interesting considering a narrative they like to put out there when it comes to looting and black people. But I'll get to that point towards the end. And we are back in Florida. We just did a story about Florida. We back in Florida again. It's like y'all just love sending me stuff about Florida. It says a Ruskin woman was arrested for looting and trying to steal fishing poles post Hurricane Ian, according to the Lee County Sheriff's Office. According to a Facebook post on Wednesday, a homeowner on Fort Myers Beach saw a woman attempting to remove 4 high-end fishing rod and reel combos valued at around $6,000 from her home. The woman fled before deputies could arrive, but deputies found her vehicle and detained Crystal Nelson. The sheriff's office said in a post, Nelson traveled to Fort Myers Beach from Ruskin to help with the disaster cleanup. This scumbag female from Ruskin wasn't quick enough to get away with expensive fishing poles, stated Sheriff Carmine Marcino. This team is unstoppable, the post said. She is charged with burglary and grand theft during a state emergency. Now, what makes this so interesting is that I remember watching a video. I forgot whose video I was watching, but they played a news clip, and it was coming from none other than Ron DeSnowflake or Ron DeSatan. Y'all know I got 2 nicknames for him. Y'all, they're interchangeable and well-deserved. Where he was talking about the storm and whatnot, then he brought up looting. And when he brought up looting, he mentioned about immigrants. He mentioned that immigrants, were most likely, doing the looting and all this and that. Look at this Crystal Nelson woman right here. I highly doubt that she fits the description of the alleged immigrant looters that Ron DeSnowflake was talking about in that news press conference. Because let's be real here. When he said looting, if he is referring to immigrants like he says, he's talking more of the more melanated or the darker tone immigrants. Maybe not the immigrants that are of a lighter hue or a lighter skin tone. Maybe he could be talking about them, but let's be real here. He's talking about someone who looks more like myself skin tone wise. Because there's always this stigma of when it comes to disasters or protests, when it comes to looting, they always put a face on it, and that face is always a melanated one, or a black one, I should say, to be more specific. They do it every single time, but there's mountains of evidence to support that looting does not have a face, because it's universal. It could be anybody. But they have to make it seem like it's only black people doing it because, we have to be the quote unquote face of criminality. What is it that Tommy Tuberville, like what he said in that little propaganda thing, when they try to make black people the face of looting or anything bad, that's propaganda. And this woman right here is as PC as they come. And she doesn't look like an immigrant. And even if she was, she's not the immigrant in which Ron DeSatan was talking about. Because PC people loot just as much as anybody else. It's a free-for-all type of thing. But to try to make it seem like it's only black people or darker tone people, that's cap. That's propaganda playing at work. And it's crazy too, because I was listening to a live stream that Blacklight Revelations 2 was doing, and he was talking about the Coonstress, and he was playing a clip from maybe a couple years ago. I don't know if it was during the pandemic or maybe before, but I know it was like she was talking into a webcam, and she was talking and using the same talking points that she always does. But then she also brought up, looting and, black people destroying their neighborhoods and stuff like that, as if other groups of people have not done the same thing. But like I said, they have to try to make black people the face of criminality at all costs, and then do what Tommy Tuberville did and say, if they're the face of criminality, why should we pay them reparations? As if that should be a reason why we shouldn't get what we're owed. Look at all these other groups have committed major heinous acts of criminality and they still get theirs. But when it comes to us, we have to be like this picture perfect group of people, which we know is not attainable because there's no such thing as the perfect person or the perfect people. Everyone has flaws. Some are more heavily flawed than others, such as the group that this heifer comes from. Like, this woman took fishing rods. Think about that for a second. And you can always tell who's the looter if you couldn't catch them based on what they take. How many black people you know out there, if they're going out there looting, they're going to take some fishing rods? Not many. Not saying black people don't fish, but when we think about the overwhelming majority of people who do go fishing, whether on a professional or non-professional level, it's mainly them. Like, if you look at those channels where they be on the boats and they be out there fishing, who's the main ones you always see? Is usually PC men. As a matter of fact, it's always them. I have yet to see a black man out there doing that. Again, that's not saying that black people don't fish, but it's a very small group that do. Hell, I've been fishing before. It's actually very therapeutic because it's like you just sit out there and you just chill until you catch something. And that's it. It's like one of the most relaxing things that you can do if you really want to clear your head and want a little bit of action there at the same time and have fun too. So, but yeah, on the overwhelming majority of people who go fishing are PC people. So when they said that this woman stole fishing rods, and it's crazy, it said total up to $6,000, but that just shows you how expensive those things are. That would tell you right there, if you didn't know her, it didn't see her face, who it was, because you can tell based on what they stole. Just like if it's something that, you know, typically you'll find a black person have, maybe like some shoes or maybe some gaming console or something like that. Well, that can be universal too, but at least with that one, if you wanted to try to say, oh, it was a black person that did it, your odds might be higher. Because that's probably something that black people was to take. That's something they would probably take. Not some damn fishing rods or fishing reels. So that pretty much let you know who it was, even if we didn't see her face or know her name. If they just said, oh, this person, we don't have an identity, but we know what they took, and they said that's what it was, I would know right off the bat it was a PC person that did it. Now, if it was a man or a woman, that's up in the air. But we know race-wise who did it. And then it's in Florida too, so it's around a lot of water. So there it is. But as far as like what punishment she's going to get, I have no clue. But I'm glad that this kind of stuff gets exposed, because I get tired of black people having to always be the face of criminality when clearly we should not be. But that's what happens when societal wise, demographically wise, we are at the bottom. And that's what they're always going to do. They're always going to, the bottom feeder is always going to be the one that's hit first and the hardest. And then everything else just kind of trickles down, even if we are not in the wrong. But yeah, I wonder if Ron DeSnowflake, the Satan, is going to talk about this. Is he going to bring this up? Since he loved to bring up that it was the immigrants that was doing the looting. But then this pops up. That threw a whole wrench into his little propaganda piece. But 9 times out of 10, he's not going to say anything. As a matter of fact, from what I've heard, and maybe someone who's from Florida can let me know if I'm correct, his handling of Hurricane Ian, or at least the response to it or how he dealt with it, wasn't the best. And that's because he couldn't talk about CRT. His go-to, his bread and butter, the thing that his base loves the most to hear from him. CRT couldn't be brought up during a natural disaster. But something tells me that if he could find a way to slither that thing in there, he probably would have found a way.